You have the right to remain silent, but we'd prefer if you didn't.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
This is Malzberg's
Spinning the law.
Spinning the Law.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
With attorney Kendell Coffey.
I've got to tell you, the theme is back. The band is back. They've regrouped. They got a new contract, apparently, from the folks here on the Steve Malzberg Show, and they have started performing once again. And there it is, Spinning the Law. It's their number one hit. It's their only hit, but we'll take it. And we welcome in, on this segment of the Steve Malzberg Show, the great Kendell Coffey, author, by the way, of a book by the same name, Spinning the Law. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, Steve. I mean, I like your band, but I've got mixed feelings about it coming back because a few shows ago you were singing the song.
You know, and I knew you'd bring that. And I was going to say it saves you and the rest of the world from having to hear me. But, you people have strange tastes, and you opt for my voice over that. Now you're ticking the band off. I see they're walking out of the room. I hope they're not angry. Anyway, I hope you're doing good, my friend.
Doing great.
All right, let's talk about a few stories here. And one is something I talked about earlier in the week with the attorney for the two Christian photographers involved here. We have the New Mexico State Supreme Court ruling that two photographers who own a Christian, they're Christians, and they own a photography business. They refused to photograph a lesbian wedding. Now, the lesbians went on and got a photographer, a cheaper rate, had the wedding photo, or a union, I should say, not a wedding, because I don't think they recognize it in New Mexico. Nonetheless, the state Supreme Court ruled that these two Christian photographers violated the state's Human Rights Act. And then one justice went so far as to say, and this is a quote or right, that the photographers were, quote, compelled by law to compromise the very religious beliefs that inspire their lives, end quote. Talk about this, because they're the lawyer for the group that defended them at the Alliance Defending Freedom said that this is really the case, the first case that's progressed to this level, so it's kind of like the lead case for many other cases to follow.
Well, I mean, I was surprised by the decision. Let's start out there, and not at all surprised that anti-discrimination laws are to be enforced. Of course, they should be, but what's a little unusual here is that, in effect, what photographers do is classic First Amendment. They're communicating. They're expressing ideas. It doesn't have to be words to be First Amendment protected. And so when a photographer is being required by some law to participate in a form of First Amendment expression, photographs that can be communicated, posted on websites, Facebook, whatever it might be, and in addition to the First Amendment issue as far as speech, they say, and I think sincerely believe that it's a violation of their religious belief. I think it's a pretty surprising decision, and it's the immediate question is, what about the First Amendment? I mean, we're in a place on these issues where it's getting more and more accepted that the government may not discriminate in any way, shape, or form with respect to gay couples, and I think it's a matter of time till same-sex marriage is seen by the federal courts as a constitutional right. But that's with respect to the conduct of government. Private individuals, forcing them, in effect, into First Amendment communication that they disagree with, putting them in a place where they either violate the law or compromise their own religious beliefs, that's pretty darn surprising, Steve. I'm not sure that this particular court decision is the last we're going to hear about this.
Yeah, his clients are deciding right now, or these two photographers are deciding right now, whether or not to move ahead, and they hope he hopes to get it to, the lawyer does, to the Supreme Court, because it is about religious liberty, First Amendment, and religious liberty. And I asked him, I said this remark by one of the judges, and this was a unanimous decision, Kendell. This written remark was by one of the judges that these two photographers were, quote, compelled by law to compromise the very religious beliefs that inspired their lives. I said it seems kind of either a snarky remark, kind of tongue-in-cheek, or kind of smart aleck remark? I said, how do you think it was meant? And he said, based on his conversations with the judge during the course of the case or whatever, the judge actually came up with him and put a hand on his shoulder and basically said, look, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your case, but too bad. This is the way it's going to be. So it was an unusual thing. Let me ask you, does this help them in their appeal? In other words, that one judge would actually write that anybody would be compelled by law to compromise their religious beliefs. Does that give them like an extra kind of basis for appeal?
Well, in a lot of situations it would, because it kind of jumps out of the opinion is something that would tell another court that this really needs to be examined. But the question here is whether the current Supreme Court really wants to get immersed in this issue.
You mean the U.S. Supreme Court? You mean the U.S.
Supreme Court, yeah. Where the current U.S. Supreme Court really wants to get immersed in the issue, or they're waiting to see what a number of other courts do. So, statistically speaking, the chances of any particular state Supreme Court decision getting accepted by the U.S. Supreme Court is remote. But this issue is really going to continue to get a lot more attention, a lot more development, because now that the battle seems to have been won in the sense that government may not discriminate. No form of government may discriminate. And as I say, eventually that battle is going to be won to the extent that government cannot discriminate. We'll call it the word discriminate, in the sense of allowing heterosexual couples to marry and not allowing same-sex couples to marry. I think that's going to happen. But what the big battleground is going to be is to what extent can individuals and this is what's striking about this case is I think photographers are classic First Amendment. That the law is now saying not only is it true that government can't discriminate, but the private rights of private individuals under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, those are now going to be sharply limited.
Right.
That's something that I think I don't think anyone can say what the answer is going to be on that one.
All right, we're moving on with Kendell Coffey here on the Spinning the Law segment of the Steve Malzberg Show. And let's go to the NFL. Because there had been much talk and speculation about how many billions of dollars these lawsuits from former players and players' families who have passed on, claiming that the league was derelict in not protecting these players from head injuries, knew about concussions, didn't do anything about them, didn't have the proper doctors on the sidelines, and didn't take proper precautions. And now we have a settlement. The NFL and more than 4,500 former players want to resolve this and settle out of court, if you will, for a $765 million settlement that would fund medical exams, concussion-related compensation, and medical research. This according to the judge involved. So we're talking about at least 10 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, including former Dallas Cowboy running back Tony Dorsett, also Super Bowl winning quarterback Jim McMahon of the Bears, and the family of Pro Bowl linebacker Junior Seau, who committed suicide last year. So this is, I see this as a win kind of for the NFL, no?
Well, I mean, it's probably a win for both sides, but definitely if you're the NFL, even though it sounds, like a pricey settlement, but consider the fact that, I mean, my gosh, there were many dramatic injuries. And apparently the NFL had some studies on this issue developed over a course of at least 10 years that never saw the light of day, that they apparently were not anxious to see it out into the public domain. So I think from the NFL's standpoint, while this is going to accomplish a lot of good for players and families of players, but from the NFL standpoint, this is getting to the place where they needed to go. They're avoiding, I mean, they got some bad publicity on this, but it could have been just catastrophically bad.
Right.
And
they won't have to reveal, they're not going to have to, I'm sorry to interrupt, they're not going to have to reveal, apparently, internal files about what it knew, when, about concussion-linked brain problems. So this, that's another positive for them, I think.
A lot of cases have a publicity premium. What is it worth not only in terms of the traditional litigation risk, but how much would it be worth to avoid what could be horrendous publicity? This one, I think, had a giant publicity premium.
Yeah. If it turned out that they had memos, saying they knew and they didn't do anything, the league would have taken a huge PR hit. You're absolutely right. And don't forget all the billions they get from the TV contracts alone. So under $1 billion, I think it's a win-win for the NFL. But let's move on to one more. I've watched the media. These anchors until they introduce the reporter involved in reporting the actual story, feigning outrage, or maybe not, maybe they're really outraged that George Zimmerman, he wants to be reimbursed for legal expenses that he incurred for defending himself down in Florida. And, you can't get lawyers' fees, and he's not asking for that. This totals between $200,000 and $300,000. But the fact of the matter is he not, under Florida law, entitled to these fees since he was found not guilty?
Well, I think he's entitled to a fair bit of it. The judge is going to determine how much, because everything about this extraordinary case, including some of the expenses, were pretty unusual. I mean, how many times does somebody have to keep moving from hotel to hotel, significant security expenses? I mean, a lot of things happen in this that simply don't happen in other cases for the defendant. And so the judge is going to have to be scratching her head a little bit and hunting through a lot of court decisions to find a precedent to guide her. But he won the case. Many would say that if you are prosecuted, your life turned upside down, the worst kind of ordeal that one can imagine is to be falsely accused of a serious crime. And I'm not speaking to whether he was falsely accused or not,
right,
but we know he was acquitted.
Right.
So as far as our legal system is concerned, he's innocent.
Right.
And I know a lot of people say, whether it's George Zimmerman or any other defendant, they beat the rap. They get off. Well, if we respect our system, we should say, as I said with respect to prosecutors, who, when I was on the prosecution side, people were acquitted. I didn't walk around and whine and say he beat the rap. I said our system has said he's innocent.
Right. Well,
that's where we leave it.
I think he has a good lawsuit based on all that, but under Florida law, he has the right to seek these expenses. Kendell, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Have a great Labor Day weekend. I'll be away for the Jewish holidays next week, so hopefully we could reconvene in a couple.
I hope so. I hope you start singing again, though, Steve. I miss that.
Oh, no, you don't. You might think you do, but you really don't. All right, take care, my friend, and thank you for making the time. Kendell Coffey,
all the best.
Thank you.